Hi everyone, hope you are all doing well and welcome back to another video on New World. So with release only just around the corner, I wanted to give you my sort of top 5 essential tips that I've learned to help you get started in New World. First up, settings. This seems to be such an undercovered topic in New World videos, but there are a few key settings you can change that is gonna make your life so much easier. Number 1, always show weapons. If you press escape, then settings, then gameplay, you'll see an option to turn on always show weapons. And this will mean that effectively, in the bottom right hand side on your toolbar, you'll now be able to see both weapons at all times. But even better than that, you can actually see the cooldowns for each of the 3 abilities on those weapons. This is hugely useful in combat, particularly PvP, as it's going to enable you to sort of switch weapons as your cooldowns end. It's going to enable you to time your abilities so much better. The next setting is field of view. If you press escape, settings, visuals, you'll see a field of view setting, which by default is probably going to be set to 50. But if you increase that to the max of 70, it has the effect of basically allowing you to zoom further out, which is really useful in getting sort of a better view of your surroundings, seeing anyone trying to sneak up on you, and really just getting a better view of the battlefield. For me, once you get used to it, it's definitely an effect worth changing. And finally, auto traverse. Not necessarily a setting for everyone. Some people aren't going to like this, as some people won't like the way it sort of auto climbs you as you run. But basically, under the gameplay settings, there is an option to turn on auto traverse, which basically means if you run forwards into a rock, fence, what other generic obstacle there is in the term, then your character will auto climb over it without having to use the shift key, in my case, to climb. So it definitely kind of makes movement a lot easier, particularly when you're in a combat situation. Now, on to tip number 2. Now, this tip isn't going to be for everyone, as for some people, exploring the world, doing the long walks is part of the game, and if that's you, that is absolutely fine. But for me, who's been playing a lot of the testing phases of this game, I am now pretty fed up with walking everywhere, and any possible shortcuts I am going to be taking. There used to be, in the alpha and beta, a respawn button that essentially allowed you to basically sort of commit suicide. And when you die in New World, you'll get an option to respawn at the nearest town or at your camp. Now there is a 500 meter maximum distance, you can't be further than 500 meters away from your camp, which kind of limits that, but it doesn't change for the town, and that is often where your quest hand-in is going to be anyway. Unfortunately, the devs have since removed the respawn button, which at first glance does somewhat hinder this technique. But fundamentally, nothing has really changed. The respawn button only acted as a suicide mechanic, so if you die to enemies, drown yourself in a river, you still get the same option to respawn back at town, which can sometimes be kilometers away, and if you die and respawn, that will save you for kilometers of walking. But what is the cost to this for all this time saving? What is the negative aspect? And that is equipment durability damage. When you die, everything you have equipped, plus everything in your inventory that is equipable, so that's like chest plates, helmets, rings that are both on you and in your inventory, will take damage. However, early on in the game, this really doesn't matter. You're changing your equipment so regularly anyway that you really aren't losing anything. So sometimes drowning yourself or getting yourself killed is the best way and the quickest way of getting back to town. Finding resources. This is probably the most asked question I've seen, and that is, where can I find X resources? Be that hemp, iron ore nodes, river cress for a quest. Wow, that's a tongue twister, isn't it? River cress for a quest. Try saying that 5 times quickly. Or certain trees for logging, whatever it be. And there are really 2 ways to go about this. Firstly, you could use the in-game map. It doesn't give you specific item locations, but it is coloured to represent different geographical regions. For example, if we look in like a mountainous area, and if we go and then look at the corresponding key, then it tells us the sort of resources we might be able to expect to find there. It is, however, quite a large area, and it's going to take a little bit of exploring to find, ideally, iron nodes in that area, even though we know there are some there. I think a much better way of finding resources is to use the awesome tool which I have recommended so many times on this channel, New World Map. This pinpoints the exact resource locations, like the iron nodes in the mountains, and it even allows you to find those harder to locate resources, such as the tongue-twisting river cress. I still can't really say that. It is an awesome tool though. It really helps you to find locations of resources, particularly at the start when there's going to be a lot of players all hunting for sort of limited amounts of iron and hemp, etc. On to number 4, and I want to talk Azoth. This is the key resource that not only will be used for fast travelling, but also for crafting. There are currently a few ways that you're going to be earning Azoth in New World. You're going to be predominantly getting it from the main storyline quest. But this is obviously a finite amount. The main story quest will eventually end, unfortunately. It doesn't go on forever. You'll find that you get some plus 10 Azoth drops from monsters, and I think this sometimes goes up to plus 15 on some of the higher level stuff. You will occasionally get vials of Azoth as random drops, and you can even get perks on your tools that give you plus Azoth for mining, skinning and harvesting. Corrupted portals are also going to be giving you a significant Azoth boost. In reality, that means that with the current cap of 1,000, which honestly is a little bit too low in my opinion, I think that people are going to end up hitting that limit and anything extra gained above that is actually just wasted. But in reality, as long as you aren't super wasteful with your fast travelling, then you should be absolutely fine with your Azoth. And whilst we're talking about fast travelling, Azoth cost for fast travelling is a factor of 3 different things. That's distance, town ownership, and encumbrance. Well, there isn't anything you can do about distance. Town ownership, well, there's very slightly something you can do, but that's a very long-winded game conquering a town. But encumbrance, well, now that is something you can do something about. If you've got an inventory full of crap, if you've got 500 iron ore that's weighing 100 kilos, then you'll be paying significantly more for your fast travel, and I mean a lot more. Put it in the storage shed. If you've got items that you're going to salvage them before you fast travel. It will make your fast travel costs significantly cheaper. Finally, what is going to be the fastest way to level your character in New World? This is always going to be a topic of some discussion and controversy, particularly as, faction quests, town projects, corrupted portals, they are all getting their XP rates regularly adjusted by the devs for balance. In open beta, town projects got their experience rates pretty heavily nerfed. And in my opinion, this is the devs trying to force the bulk of the people to be doing main quests and side quests. And I think fundamentally these are still going to be your main leveling methods. But that's not to say things like town projects aren't useful. Yes, even though their XP has been nerfed a few times now, killing 10 wolves, you're going to be doing that anyway. Making a box of iron armaments, it requires such a small amount of iron ore and a little bit of rawhide, you're even going to be getting free weapon crafting XP out of it. Well worth doing. It's going to give you a bonus 1,000, 1,500 XP, plus a little bit of territory standing level as well. It's a great way of supplementing your leveling. So you should always be doing some of the things like the town projects, but it's just that main quests, side quests are going to be your primary ways. Initially, for you as a new player, that's going to be First Light, Windswood, Monarch's Bluff and Everfall, up to around level 25, when you'll then go on to tackle the Amarine Excavation, and then you can sort of move up into Brightwood for some more side quests. Beyond that, you should probably be looking at Cutler's Keys and then Reaver's Fen. And since we are on the topic of leveling, Elite Zones can be an effective way of gaining XP, but they did get some very, very significant buffs, particularly to the hit points in the open beta, which is going to make it a much slower method now than it used to be before. We could also go on to talk about corrupted portals and how they can be used, but we did a whole separate 10-minute video on them, so if you want to know more about them, I'd go and check that out. Anyway, we shall end this video here. Hopefully it's been useful. If it has, let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you have any extra questions about any of this stuff, do ask in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel for lots more New World content, and I shall see you guys all on the next one.